A man in Vietnam has buried over 20,000 babies, 3 cemeteries full of tragic remains. The reasons why these babies are in the ground have shocked many people, but of course, there is always more than one side to the story. Let me tell you about it. Tong Phuoc Phuc. The man's name was Tong Phuoc Phuc, and I'll call him Tong for short. He lives in Hon Tom, Nha Trang Province, Vietnam. In 2001, his wife was pregnant, and the delivery was quite an event. It was difficult, and she had to stay in the hospital for a couple of days. While she was recovering, Tong visited her. Sitting at her bedside, he watched other pregnant women enter the clinic, some with small lumps, and assumed they were coming in for a checkup. After a while, however, they would come out of the hospital again, but they were no longer pregnant. They also did not have a baby in their arms, and he would not see them again. Tong was confused. What was going on? He realized that those women had terminated their pregnancies in the hospital, but his heart went out to all those unwanted babies. Where did they go? He asked around and found out that not much was done with them. They were just disposed of. Tong, a Christian man, could not let this go, so he asked if they would be willing to give him the unborn babies so he could give them a proper burial. Something inside him told him this was important. Working as a construction worker, Tong had some money saved up and used it to buy land. The plot he found was on top of a mountain and would be the burial site. It took a while to arrange everything and receive the proper permits, but in July 2004, he was able to welcome the first baby and buried it on the 13th of that month. It was a major milestone for the man, and it wasn't the last. Little did he know how big this would become, and that he would become world famous. Unwanted pregnancies are something that everyone has an opinion on. Today, I am not here to change your mind or tell you what to do. I myself have no answers, and it is virtually impossible to know what it is like to be in someone else's shoes. Some people just don't have the options or the information they need to make the decision they want to make. Their choices are driven by the circumstances of their life or the people around them. The truth is, however, that unfortunately, many women become pregnant with unplanned or unwanted pregnancies around the world. Abortion laws vary around the world and sometimes do not allow a woman to do what she thinks she should do. And of course, there is the life of the child to consider. Do they deserve a choice? A life lost is always tragic, but an unwanted commitment of this kind can also destroy a life. There really is no right answer in most cases. Well, as I mentioned, I'm not here to fill your head with ideas, although I may have just done that. I just want to show you the acts of this amazing Vietnamese man who took it upon himself to at least help all these little souls travel to the afterlife. Tong decided to at least take on this part. The facts in Vietnam don't lie. Although officially abortion rates are around 300,000 per year, experts assume that most pregnancies are terminated outside of official channels. Many young women are often afraid that their families will find out and feel compelled to keep the procedure a secret. And when I say young women, I mean young, as about 70% are between the ages of 13 and 19. Part of the problem is the lack of education and knowledge about contraception. Going to school is more than just learning to read and write. It is learning what choices you have in life and what the consequences of certain actions are. Aren't you glad you were able to go to school and learn all you want, maybe even study at a college or university? Many people in the world never have that opportunity. What also doesn't help is Vietnam's family planning policy to keep the growing population in check. For years, the country has enforced a 2-child policy, leaving families expecting a 3rd child in an administrative bind and even facing fines for having an additional child. No subsidies are granted to large families, and many find themselves unable to support the baby. Finally, with the evolution of the techniques surrounding pregnancies, many people try to know the sex of their child before birth, as it is known that in many countries, the birth of a son is preferred to the birth of a daughter. Both socially and culturally, this has unfortunately led to the abortion of many girls. Demographic experts and government administrators are concerned that this gender gap will have serious effects down the road. Turning back to Tong, he was just about to discover the extent of the operation he had gotten himself into when the babies started arriving. Small boxes were sent to him in large numbers, up to 30 babies a day, and he had a hard time dealing with the influx, but he did, despite the overwhelming number. He had a spot in the ground of his cemetery carefully prepared. He would place them side by side with a small headstone and colorful flowers for each one, naming each child after a saint. Soon, news of his efforts spread, and people were moved to see all those graves and realize the reason for their existence. People were also surprised. Soon, volunteers started showing up to help Tong in the activities, which was a great relief. But now not only was the hospital sending him little bodies, but they were also bringing babies found on the roadsides or in garbage cans, which is just heartbreaking. Tong took them all in, gave them a small coffin, and made sure they all had a proper burial. The graves began to number in the thousands. Tong's story, in addition to going viral around the world, also touched the hearts of women who became pregnant unexpectedly and contemplated abortion. Seeing all those little graves made them think twice. However, many still did not see how to have and raise the child that was to be born. If you bring a child into the world, you also want to give it the best life possible, and many women simply don't have the means and support around them to do that. After many years and more than 15,000 burials, Tong was getting tired. It seemed like a never-ending problem, and the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she had to help the women who were having a hard time. So he started talking to the young women about options for keeping the baby, and in some cases offered to raise the baby himself. Suddenly, from gravedigger, Tong turned to caring for children, creating a makeshift orphanage for all the children who were eventually born but could not stay with their mothers. Nun Nguyen was one of the women who rejected the idea of abortion after seeing the cemetery and talking to Tong. He told her that he would help raise her daughter if she would let her come into the world. When the girl was born, he took her in and allowed Nun to visit her whenever she wanted. We often say that one person can't make a difference, but Tong was proving otherwise. He was making more and more waves, and now his new foster home project was also making headlines around the world. Although many people wanted to help, they couldn't see themselves traveling to Vietnam and helping Tong feed, clothe, and care for all those children, or helping to dig more graves. But of course, there are other ways to help, and donations started pouring in. From monetary funds to gifts of food and other needed resources for the orphanage, such as blankets, formula milk, and toothbrushes. Soon, Tong took in more than 100 children, but fortunately, he was also able to reunite more than 50 of them with their birth mothers. Sometimes, all it takes is the will to make something happen, and when the right opportunity presents itself or circumstances change, the world can seem brighter. Many women are now immensely grateful that they did not resort to abortion and chose to let their child be born. Tong was literally changing many lives and touching many hearts. I'm sure this story will help you see things from a slightly different perspective. Maybe you are now looking for a flight to Vietnam to go help this amazing man. In any case, let us know in the comments what you think of this story, and remember to maintain respect in matters such as this. There are no right or wrong answers, and mutual understanding should be the highest goal. Hey, if you liked this story, like it, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm Max, and see you in the next story.